And we are live. We are here with a very special guest, Adam from South Harmon and BDGE, Dynasty enthusiast and sicko. We're going to talk some strategy, how to tier down from rookies, and how to use WORP. So if you guys are Dynasty players like us, get in here with us and get the chat popping. What's good, Adam? How's it going, brother?
What's going on, man? Appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to degen it up and talk some Dynasty with you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, me too. We were talking before the stream started, but I just kind of want to get to know you first a little bit. Obviously, I've seen you in the streets on Twitter and on YouTube and everything, but thanks so much for hopping on. Let me just say hi to the people really quick before we get started. We got D-Walk in here, South Harmon, the boys,
D-Walk.
Dynasty Barry, Redwords.
Yeah.
And then he said, D-Walk says, zag when zig. In a listener league, when everyone believes the same Dynasty methodology, how do you zig when everyone zags? Okay, we'll get into that in a second after we get started. We got the league in here.
We got Andrew. What's going on, Andrew? We got Caleb. We got everybody in here.
We got Fantasy Football Garage. Go check him out.
Yo.
We got all the boys in here. But yeah, man, thanks for hopping on.
Sure. Of course.
So I guess my first question is kind of, how did you get started in Dynasty? How did you get started in content? And yeah, let's go from there.
Sure. Yeah. Appreciate the question. And I mean, it's kind of not a crazy, or it could end up seeming crazy, but it's a pretty original story. I was in keeper leagues and played fantasy and enjoyed it, but when started to transition into dynasty leagues, I just became really, really intrigued with the format and the strategy piece in general about the long-term team building aspect of being a GM and what so you may have. So started just watching other people's content because I was just intrigued about the game. I wanted to learn more about it. One thing about me is I can be a little bit obsessive, right? Like when I get into something, I'm just like, I want to know everything about it. So I started watching people's content, and then before I know it, I found people that I liked in the space, and they had their own strategies. And I kind of was just, at that point, like working and supporting them and trying to, learn more from them. So got into their Discords and started communicating more and more, and ended up with Destination Debbie's Discord over Ray Garvin over there. I'm in a Discord where I was kind of listening at the point to Player Profiler, guys like Mike Liu, and some of the thoughts that Destination Debbie had obviously were very smart too. But there'd be every now and again these points in that Discord where I'm like, I feel like I'm an outsider because my view would be slightly different, right? Not in a bad way, just I'm big. Well, this guy comes in the chat. Basically, what I was thinking in my head, he puts out in the chat and says, like, no, I see it the other way. And it was about James Robinson, who we were dead wrong on, for the record, right? And I'm like, you know what? I kind of like this guy. I think I like this guy. And that's Mike now. We formed South Harmon. We started talking, basically because of that. And every now and again, we would have like differing views than the overall group, I would say, in Destination Debbie, which kind of got us doing our own little podcast for fun. And then before you know it, we turn into having our own, YouTube channel. And at this point, I'm crazy enough. I've left my normal 9-to-5 job doing this, working with BDGE, meeting guys like Andrew, all the dope people in the space, meeting yourself. And it's a 3 to 5 year ride now, which it's hard to believe how long that is, but it's been a whirlwind. It's been a ton of fun. And like the crazy part is this was not why I got into the game at all, but here I am,
Yeah, that's super dope. Yeah, I didn't know that whole story. You know what I mean? I've seen you around, but I don't know the full story. So that's super dope. Yeah, it's to be able to do it full time is honestly really, really sick. Because I mean, I think it's obviously, like you said, that you get obsessive about stuff. That's kind of how I started as well. Just a little bit, as I'm sure we'll get into. But Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, once you get what you start to see, like, right, there's kind of like groupthink, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on whatever YouTube or wherever you go, and I think it's always just behooves you to kind of, do some deeper thinking and question your own beliefs and how you want to build your teams, how your process, and always be tweaking, which I think I'm sure I know you do as well. And
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big part of it, and I think I'll say, at least for me, as I make more content and I'm playing a lot of leagues, this year especially, I've gotten a lot more, I'd say, oppositional problems when I'm trying to trade. Right? People are just leery. They think I have some kind of crazy angle. I can show you all the jerseys over here. I can show you all the bad trades I've made. I promise I don't know anything ahead of time. But the reason I say that is, like, to me, it kind of keeps my frame of mind and thinking about how, if you always are kind of stuck on the past and what's currently happened, what's changing all the time is going to be what you're missing. And so almost kind of having to try to future cast out what you think is going to happen in the future and how that will shift from a strategy perspective has kind of been like something I've had to learn to even tweak more so. But you got to always be adjusting, because it's not like static, it's fluid, right? It always is going to be changing.
yeah, it's a journey. Like, it's like I was telling you before we started on the stream, like, yeah, 2022, I only started playing Dynasty a couple of years ago. And yeah, just by chance, right? You find people that you kind of vibe with, that you think are smart. You see them, whether it's trades or just the way they're handling their team, and you kind of whatever go down the rabbit hole. And yeah, I think I always enjoy, kind of your guys' process, and that you guys are really always trying to push the boundaries of whether it's WORP, whether it's just whatever, different team building and tearing down, tearing up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, like, what would you say, like, is, well, actually, first of all, how many leagues are you in? Because that's my general question.
Great question. And this is an interesting one. I think I actually got asked this question in a BDGE stream I did actually a couple of days ago, literally Saturday. And like, how many leagues is too many? And I think this in general is such a universal question, but is not a universal answer, right? Like,
absolutely, yeah.
This is completely 100% subject to the person and what you're comfortable with, what your, like, managerial style is. And for me, I think a lot of the process in playing more leagues, right, is why I like making content. And for me, one of the things that I think in South Harmon in general, like, we talk about our content as players, and we play the game. Like, say whatever you want about us. You can say we're stubborn, rigid, we have stupid strategies. I'm all for it. But one thing I can promise you is we play the game and we love the game. So with that standpoint, for me, I didn't really know, like, what was too many, right? I remember at first feeling like, man, I started in, like everyone else, 1 or 2 leagues. And then, like, all right, yeah, I think I'm ready to take on some more. And I got myself up to like 5, I think it was. And then it was 10. When I got up to 10 that year, I'm like, this hasn't been a problem. So I'm good. Like, I can keep going. I can keep going up. And I remember the next year I got to like 18. And even there, it really wasn't a problem, at least from what I was seeing. And the next year I got into, like, as South Harmon was growing, we're doing all these South Harmon. We're doing South Harmon startups all the time. So
I was gonna say, when you have those people with you, you can always do more. Yeah,
and a lot of them are in here. We said Fizzle Says was popping. We got like a really great, dope group of people in our community. So honestly, I'm just like, yeah, sure, another startup, yeah, for sure, because you got that itch, man. You want to play. When I got to 28 that year, it was actually reflecting on the season. Like, I basically realized, like, I'm not the way I play. That was too many for me, and I wasn't doing a good enough job paying attention to all my leagues. And for me, I basically realized, like, well, I didn't want to leave, and I cut down 10 that year. I'm back down to 18 now. But what I realized more so than anything was, like, I don't want people's experience to be, I mean, I'm sure people are not, but for the record, like, I don't think anyone's out here like, oh yeah, Adam, you weren't playing. I'm sad that I kicked your ass, right? Like, no, that's not how it went down. But they don't want their experience to be like where I'm kind of inactive in this league, right? And I'm like, also, that's not a good reflection of me and how I want to be a part of these leagues. So I cut down to 18. I feel like at least for me right now, I'm in a pretty comfortable spot. One of the things about me is I like to trade and kind of understand my league mates in general. I like to play that aspect up. And when I got too high, right, with 28, basically it was coming to the point where I was getting further and further from that, and being able to understand all the different league mates I have there, or at least what's going on in each one of those specific team builds. And that it kind of was getting further from the ability to be able to do that. So I have a weird process, and that's a weird answer, but that's my answer. So it's like, right around 18-20 is where I'm at, and I'm comfortable here. I may go up again, I may go down again, but at the moment I feel comfortable right here.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're right. There's no one size fits all. Like, I think for me, like, yeah, like I am just so obsessive about it. Like, I think, and yeah, so yeah, I have a lot more leagues than that. But I
love
think,
it, man. Preach, talk the DJ and stuff. Tell everybody.
yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just like, yeah, like you said, like you kind of get into a process, you kind of get into a groove of things, and I think, yeah, you just kind of figure out like whether it's waivers. I play in pretty deep leagues, so it's not like super crazy for waivers, and then lineups. It's honestly kind of freeing once you have so many leagues because you can kind of preset your lineups and then just check whatever ends up being like 30 minutes for me before Thursday night or Sunday morning or whatever. It's not,
yeah,
it's really not as unmanageable as I think it seems to be. Especially like I'm super active in the off season as well. So it's like my team's pretty much set. And yeah, so I guess my question, like, cause this is something like, I know how I go about it, but like kind of where do you, like, how do you go about, like, are you a person where you will just kind of sit there when you have free time and sign out a bunch of trades? Is it more you think a player is undervalued or overvalued and you kind of just go through your leagues and see what's going on? Like, obviously there's a team building side of things. Like, what is your general approach to kind of trading? We'll start there. I'm sure we'll go further.
I hope you guys, if you're here, get ready to stay for a while. We could talk about this all day. At least I could. Trading is the art of trading. It's actually funny because I'm coming off of someone getting really upset about a trade that went down in one of my leagues, which is pretty rare, honestly, but it happens. And
yeah,
the reality of trading, right? Like, you can have in the process of trading in itself and your team building aspect, right? And as I continue to go up higher in my portfolio, it's very important. You have to have a system, right? Like, you have to be knowing like when you're going to hit waivers, and you have to tighten that stuff up. And I kind of had to learn while putting up my leagues, like how much more attentive I needed to be to like the organization of that, making sure I was getting a routine and a system. Because if you fall out of that system, all of a sudden you miss a waiver run, dude. Like, they could totally screw you, honestly. And it seems crazy, but it's the truth. And sometimes the system is actually, though, like being disciplined and not spending money, so you have the hammer later. That's part of just the fab. But when it comes to trading, when you're looking at your team build and how you want to have it, when you're making a trade, you're always trading with one specific person. And so you could put in trade calculators, you could have all these different thoughts, you could think whatever you want about their team, but you're trading with an individual. And the best part about the league for me, and where I feel like my joy and passion comes from, but also where I'm different than most dynasty managers, is being able to, a lot of people that will say, oh, he gets into his sales thing, right? But I know how to kind of find a way to figure out what they're trying to get out of the trade and make sure that they feel like they're leaving with something, even if the trade ends up lopsided in one favor or the other later. They feel like they're leaving with what they want. And I try to basically trade with volume and feel like, okay, this person, Adam, that was actually, he was kind of reasonable. Maybe everyone else hates the trade, but this guy was kind of reasonable. And like, maybe I'll go trade with that guy again. Now, if you always are fleecing people and you're always doing one crazy trade, it's pretty hard to build those relationships. And I think sometimes I'm finding a lot of my leagues where it gets stale. Everybody's like trying to win a trade. And if they don't want to trade, they don't want to trade. Like, okay, well, we ain't going to trade. We could just sit here and just do waivers all year. But that's kind of the way I think about it. And I think it's really underestimated and underappreciated how much there's you have to work with an individual on this. Sometimes it's timing. Like, for me, if I can go out and want to buy a player off someone's team, if they're not in the capacity frame wise, like in their brain to make a trade, they're probably not making a trade. I can't make them make a trade. So sometimes it's being attentive enough. Hey, I got an offer, and you know what? This guy's willing to talk ball right now. He hasn't talked to me in 5 months about trades. Let me see if I can send him a counter. Can I get something done here, even if it's not his specific trade? Sometimes people don't want to do the work, man. Sometimes people don't want to do the work, and you got to go through that process.
Dude, I think that's a super, super underrated part. And yeah, I mean, I think generally people are trying to just not screw the other people over, but I do think a lot of people are. And I think that is I'm not going to name any names, but yeah, there's people I'm in leagues with where I'm like, they're only doing a trade if they're winning by a first or whatever. Like it's just a huge lopsided trade. And I think, like you said, that's such an underrated part. If you're known as the guy who is willing to be reasonable, right? Like willing, okay, whatever, I'll just throw you an extra whatever, and bench piece or third or just something to get the deal done, just because, or on the other side, you're not going to let a third just hold it up just because you're trying to eke out every little bit of value. I think that's super, super underrated. And yeah, just, I mean, being friendly with everyone, developing relationships. I mean, I'm in whatever crazy amount of leagues. And so a lot of whatever, sometimes it'll be one-offs, but a lot of times I'll have been in 3 or 4 leagues with people or whatever. Sure. And then
you get to a portfolio where how many leagues are you in? I don't know if you said
I'm like, I think I'm 55 now or something like that. It was
55. Man, he's out here. I love that. Well, no, I mean, if you're in 55 leagues, we actually over at the lab on South Harmon, we always like to plug little stuff here and there, but it's a free tool.
Oh yeah, I use that.
You can go see when there's a trade portion in the lab, and when you go to trades, you can go to basically you can sort it out by price check, where that's the entire sleeper database of trades. But if you're not on price check, you're on the trades of just basically it's a funnel almost of those 55 people, those 55 leagues that you're in. Any person you're playing against in those 55 leagues, all their leagues also are in those trades. So when you think of that web, like to your point, you're probably going to get some crossover. But you're dealing with a ton of different managers, and there's a ton of different styles in which people play. Some people aren't going to make a trade unless you haggle with them. Some people don't like to haggle. Some people don't like to get the idea of, oh man, he sent me a shitty, terrible offer off the rip. Like, I feel like that's such a fun one to me. Like, did you expect somebody to send you a great offer, guys? Is that what we thought was going to happen in this game? Like, stop it.
Yeah, I think, unless it's someone where like we just know that we're pretty similar on the way we value player. I mean, there might be some differences, but like generally we're pretty aligned. Then I'll probably be expecting, but that's probably like 10 people that I'm like, okay, I know you. We're in a lot of leagues,
and you have a history with that
and we have a history with them.
So now you have a starting ground where like you have an idea how to work with that person. So maybe the trades that are coming in from those type of people are better starting offers, but if you're
definitely definitely
not as a whole, right? I mean, and it's just amazing when it's like, oh man, I opened this offer and it's a terrible offer. You got an offer. I mean, you got an offer. You could have had none, believe it or not.
It's better than your league being completely inactive. That's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, some managers, listen, they're out there to try to fleece you. Like they're literally trying to just hopefully get you to press one time of 100, 200, 300 times accept on this, right? That's all they need. But sometimes like people actually just send a poor starting offer. It's their style. They're lowballing at first. Sometimes people are oblivious or looking at different type of, sometimes we get very in our own little world in our niche, right? Like South Harmon, we have some of the takes we have in our own community. We may feel like we all know very well, but if you're in a league with people that are not at South Harmon, you're like, what is going on? As soon as the draft starts, the rookie draft, like, holy crap, people have so many different views. So they might be using totally different information for their starting offer. And we may think it's terrible, but for them, it's not that bad. They aren't thinking about the way that you roster construct. They aren't thinking about your team a lot of times when they're sending out these offers. So that song and dance to me is a very interesting one and one that I enjoy. So that's for me why going up to 28, that's where I found like I wasn't able to really understand the intricacies of my league enough to play up that type of psychology aspect of it.
Yeah, no, you're speaking my language for sure. So yeah, I guess in terms of let's pull up this question here, because I think this is a good segue into this.
Yeah,
question.
Here's the super chat. D-Walk, I was just going to say,
shout out to you.
Redword's put in there. If you don't, just pull up real quick. I don't want to tell you how to run your stream, but he wants to know what the trade was. Don't leave us hanging. I'll tell you the trade. So it's a 12-team Superflex best ball league, right? Starting 12 players. I traded away Mahomes, and I traded away my 26 first and a 27 third. I got back J.J. McCarthy, the 111, the 112, and the 203. Now, wherever you fall on that trade, just understand I got rid of Mahomes for a upside play of JJ McCarthy, maybe also super question mark, as well as a bunch of day 2 picks in this rookie class. Like, honestly, when I made that trade, I kind of was like, I probably played into rookie fever a little bit here. Like it for me. But would anybody be surprised if, you know, in a year from now, 2 years from now, Caleb Johnson, Bayshaw Tootin, some of the guys I got in this trade are irrelevant? We shouldn't be. I mean, if you played the game long enough, it's not. So
you're
anyway,
never going to bat 1,000. Yeah.
So anyway, like if I look at a year's time from now and I'm like, damn, I thought I was getting off of Mahomes at a value, but I kind of screwed up my team in 4 different spots. Like, it could be the case. But anyway, that was the trade, right? So I sent away my first and 26, sent away Mahomes, sent away a third. I got back the 111, 112, and 203 in JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's well, yeah. So the kind of tree that I came from, we were talking about it before the stream, but yeah, did a startup with Dynasty Zoltan in 2022, first one ever. Met my friend David, who's super smart guy, like whatever, very well educated, good job, everything. I was like, I could immediately tell like this guy knows what he's doing. So followed him, got into the Bulletproof Discord, RIP. But and then they were super heavy on quarterbacks and tight ends. They were like, these are the guys we want, the elite tight ends, elite quarterbacks. So me being a new Dynasty player, I still had whatever 10 leagues or whatever it was, but I would just go all in, right, whether it's a startup context or trades, and just try to acquire those guys.
In Superflex, so you're trying to get two of the elite quarterbacks, right?
2 of the elite quarterbacks, and then at that time it was Kyle Pitts, also RIP, Mark Andrews, whether it's Kittle, whatever it is, those guys up top. But I was just going all in, like sacrificing kind of whatever the rest of my value of my team just to get into those spots, which I don't think it's necessarily like it depends on how you do it. But I think I learned over the years. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's you're talking about the Mahomes trade.
Here you go, Fizz. You want this? I don't want it.
Burn it.
Fizz is one of our. Well, he does content with us too. One of our listeners too, and he loves Kyle Pitts. And when you're talking about, he's been one of the players I learned from the tight end position where I view it now. I bought in Kyle Pitts way too heavily and way too high, and it burned the hell out of me multiple times.
Yeah, I think now we're seeing. I feel like now we're seeing. Well, yeah, actually, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. But yeah, like just speaking to your Mahomes trade, like same thing. Like there would have been a time where I would have never traded Mahomes off my team ever. Like I just would have been like, okay, this is the end goal. Like the end goal is to reach this kind of player, and I'm just not open to even taking offers on him.
You would have him as actually an immovable piece on your team, right? He can't be moved. He's untouchable.
But then I think I came like right then after playing for longer and learning from whether it's you guys or other people on YouTube and in the space, like I just realized I'm like, okay, well, if I can't feel, yes, it's probably plus EV, like if the rest of my team is serviceable, but if I'm just sacrificing, right, like whether I usually play in Superflex, 3 wide receiver, either 2 or 3 wide flex spots.
Flexes.
So 0.5 tight end premium. So it's like
you're talking like start 10, start 11 leagues.
Yeah, start 10, start 11. So I mean, you need those flex spots, right? Like they're super important. And then I'm also not usually spending a ton of capital unless it just falls that way on RB2. So it's like I'm pretty thin at these other spots, and
right.
It's not really useful to just put all your eggs in one basket. So that definitely is a trade. I've done trades like that this offseason, like Mahomes for Trevor Lawrence and whatever, Zay Flowers or something like that, where I'm like, is the production really that different, right?
Yeah.
Like in any given season between, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, that you can have the player take there, but whatever, insert QB2-ish guy. So yeah, that's a really interesting one that you brought up, because I definitely agree with that kind of thinking as well.
It's funny because as you're talking about that, right, it reminds me to talk about this part of it where there was a time, and it's not that long ago. I mean, listen, I guess maybe I'm showing my age here, but 2022, when you were talking about just starting, right? 2022, Patrick Mahomes in this league for the scoring, speaking of WORP, he was at 3.38. Now that means wins over replacement player. He was giving you 3.38 wins relative to the replacement player, which for the record in this league would be quarterback 13. Okay. So my point is he absolutely destroyed the league by himself. It's a 6-point passing touchdown. It's super flex. It is best ball, but it's high-end quarterbacks go crazy in this league. So
Sure.
I traded for Patrick Mahomes. I sent away Brock Purdy, who at the time we hated, right? At least this community did.
Same.
I did. Mike did.
I used to.
So I sent away Purdy. I sent away Kittle. This is a best ball league. I sent away Purdy. I sent away Kittle, and I sent away 2 mid firsts. Like, so I made the process of going in, and that was a worse trade for my team at the time. I pretty much lost the league because of that. At the time, I'm like, I gotta have Mahomes. Like, if I get Mahomes, basically at that point, it was the thinking of if you have a chance to acquire Mahomes, you just do it. And part of the information, again, is all subject. It's all subjective, right? How someone trades and builds their team and what they think about players, subjective. None of this shit's objective. So when people come in here and tell me like how this trade is unfair and it's ridiculous and at the end of the day, 2 people made a trade. You weren't a part of these 2 people. So peanut gallery, like, go make a trade yourself. It's not objective. There's no way to say this is now. We all know inherently, like, we could see a trade that's so egregious that's collusion, sure, but this trade is not that trade at all. And we could see the process of I wanted to have Mahomes, and then I'm like, all right, now because his production has fallen off the last several years, like, okay, now I want to try to get off Mahomes. But if someone wants to get off of JJ McCarthy for Mahomes in a first, like, who are we to tell them no?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a super good. Yeah, I think it's a super good point. And it's like, yeah, there's no right way, and it's even right. Like, that's the other interesting part about Dynasty is, right, like, you'll go into a season and people have completely different goals. People are trying to tank. People are trying to. I think one of the biggest edges is either whether it's capitalizing off people that just think they need to tank when they don't, or they're coming off of a tank and they don't throw their chips in when they have the ammo to do it, and they're just wasting a year or 2 years or however long it is.
The perpetual rebuilder, the rebuilder for forever, you know.
Yeah. So you talked about WORP a little bit. I know that's a big part of your guys' process at South Harmon. So why don't you kind of give us a TLDR on that, and kind of we can parlay that into how do you build your teams and your process in terms of that.
For sure. I'm wearing a Malik Neighbors jersey now. I wish I would have worn our new WORP is life shirt, because that's at least the process for us over there. If you just type in warp.life, it'll forward you to the WORP tool on our website. But with WORP, really, really interesting, the process for how WORP started too. You're talking about like how South Harmon got started, how we got started our journey. Koopa Troopa, who does podcasts and content for us now, you may have seen, the person that developed the WORP tool. This one's really crazy and interesting. The WORP tool was actually around in the season before we had the website, and it blew up, so to speak. Now, if you haven't heard of the WORP tool and you're like, it blew up, when I say it blew up, nobody cared about WORP for the most part, right? There was hardly anyone that cared about WORP. You used to have these WORP sheets. Everything you can get on the WORP website right now, the tool,
okay,
Koopa basically could run the league for you ahead of time, right? So instead of it being on the website where it is now, where you can just go insert all your stuff, you say, hey, Coop, I got these 18 leagues I'm in, right? I was at the 18 leagues at the time. Can you run me the WORP charts on all those? And he would give you in a Google sheet, you'd have all these different WORP charts. Everything you see on the website right now, you'd have at your disposal, but like the convenience factor, right? It was on these WORP charts. It wasn't on the website. You can't play around with it quite as easily. People were, kind of into it, learning about it, but it wasn't that big of a deal. We opened the website and launched it, and WORP started to go crazy. You see there's all kinds of different tools out there that are also WORP or WAR, and people use this in a lot of different ways and strategies and how they look at the information and what they think about it. Wins over replacement player, though, essentially, right? When I was going through, and I did a series called Dynasty Mind Warp with Scott Connor, which honestly was one of the more, yeah, he really is. Scott's a great dude, and he super smart Dynasty mind. And like anytime he and I were get around doing content together, it was like he almost in a way with his kind of crazy outward thinking would make me get outside of my box a little bit more and think. And so we kind of had the with Mind Warp, it was a really fun series where we're thinking about how WORP runs in a lot of different leagues and going through that and talking through, how I would potentially play it differently in this league and that league. And with WORP, what it really does, and where he kind of talked about why he was so interested about WORP, and he was kind of the person that I think pushed WORP being talked about enough to where Kupo developed the tool, and now it's something that people are talking about all over the place. Basically thinking about running your league and managing it in an efficient manner. he's an insurance guy. So I don't want to take his story, but I'm going to try to paraphrase for it. With insurance, the idea is, right, if something bad happens to your team with insurance, like if you think about just like a house for a second, something bad happens to your house, you want to have enough insurance to take care of everything, right? But there's no point in over insuring yourself. Let's say your house is a $500,000 house, there's no point in carrying $2 million worth of coverage, because if everything goes wrong, $500,000 is what you're going to get out max. So you're just paying excess on the premium, which you may never cash in on, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of the whole idea with, like, for us, we're in lineup and best ball. The different strategies there with WORP are so big because Mike and I are big tear down people, and we were playing in more best ball leagues than lineup leagues. But then when you start thinking about the different strategies, like when you start tearing down to a certain point in lineup, okay, you got a bunch of depth. But if everything goes wrong with your starters and you have to use all that depth, you ain't fucking winning the league anyway, right? Like,
yeah,
you kind of realize. Now, granted, there's variance, and maybe you happen to hit on a couple guys that go crazy in the playoffs or whatever. Like, sure. But the process overall with WORP is really thinking about, where am I getting best pockets of value against, replacement level players that are good players, and where are there inefficiencies in market values, right? Where dynasty market maybe on certain players is really high, but their production in this league format just doesn't make sense. So now I have this is a position I'd like to move. It's great when you're one of the few people that have WORP. It's a lot harder when you're playing with a bunch of South Harmon degenerates that have the same WORP tool, and it's like, all right, we see that this is a running back heavy and driven league. You can't even get Tony Pollard for any of these. Like, that's kind of the fun part about it. But it really is, for us. It's a lifestyle thing, honestly. Like, I just did a mock draft yesterday with a bunch of people. Scott was in that as well, where it's a bunch of like creators, and I the first thing I did before even thinking about doing a mock draft, which I have no real stakes in, right? I run the WORP on it. Like, what's it look like? How am I building my team? For me, it's a starting point, and it's something that I do with all my teams, and I look at and use as a big piece and edge.
Yeah, it's funny because I haven't. So I'm obviously aware of WORP and like generally for my leagues, but I think just intuitively, like talking with other smart people, like I know Jacob Sanderson, I just had him on the channel. He's one of my favorite analysts in the space, super smart guy.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, like he always, I think I forget, I'm gonna mess up the actual wording of it, but like essentially the most like young wide receivers that basically are going to give you like 12 or 13 points a game, but they're sexy and they're young. Like, it's pretty much the worst bet you can make in Dynasty, right? So like, sure. That's not, I remember a few years ago, like it's much harder now. I don't know if it's just the market is smarter. If it's
also speak to the specifics of what you're going to say here, because I'm curious on this.
So yeah, like basically I used to essentially, like, I think one of the things was like basically trade that young guy. So whether, I don't know if it was George Pickens back in the day or whoever it was, you basically would trade him for a piece that's going to score similarly and a first on top. And I used to be able to do that all the time. Now I feel like, I don't know if it's just because people are more aware, there's better tools out there, what people are doing. I find it a little bit harder to do that. I mean, you can obviously go further down. Like that's why I roster like 30% Jacoby Myers and 30% whatever, these guys who are cheaper.
I found another Jacoby Myers guy out there. Let's go.
Jacoby Myers Stan. Let's go.
My first money moves I ever did, Jacoby Myers, I talked about. And it's like 2023 and still about as unpopular as a human could be in fantasy football, you know?
Nobody cares. He scored like 14 points a game in PPR last year, and nobody cares.
I did it. We were doing a weekly show with BDGE in the redraft league, and we were talking about trade targets, right? And I put as my lowest one Jacoby Myers, and at the time I remember getting a lot of pushback, like, Jacoby Myers, like, just stop it. And I'm like, well, if you listen to this, kind of the point is you can probably ask in like a redraft league, like you could probably get him almost thrown in. And you know what? Jacoby Myers outscored every fucking person on that list.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle.
Any of the targets that we talked about on there, Jacoby Myers was the best producer. It isn't sexy. So, for example, when you get into really shallow leagues, right? When I talk about WORP, Jacoby Myers in the longer lineup leagues, super valuable, underrated as could be. In a shorter lineup league, he still is that way, but it's like he's a flex option, and you probably wouldn't like to depend on him. But so when a lot of times in a more shallow format, which is what most people play, like Jacoby Myers just doesn't have any upside, they think. So there's no place for him. But yeah, it's interesting. But anyway, to your point of tear downs, I don't know if you were going to finish there. You were saying it's basically harder to tear down than it's been in the past.
I feel like it's harder now than it was before. I think there's still opportunity to do it. I just still think it's a huge edge if you can get it done.
Sure.
And especially for, like, I think another example would be like pocket passing quarterbacks.
That's the Mahomes thing.
Yeah, exactly. So Mahomes,
that's
Herbert,
more of a thought, right?
I mean, we saw CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, all these guys were valued as like, well, they're first or second round startup picks, and then they have a bad year. Variance doesn't swing their way.
Well, and there's a lot of reasons for that with scoring and the percentage in which teams are running zone and trying to take the top big top off play that Mahomes used to kill people with. Teams are basically like, no, we're going to make him earn drives, and so the passing quarterbacks relative to the Konami guys, the last several years, it's you go look at a WORP chart. You don't have to do that even. You can go look at just scoring, and you can feel that it's not the same. Now, that kind of always will shift, right? What takes place on the field. But the interesting part, to your point, I stay on tearing down. Shout out to Mike, guys. Him and I started South Harmon together. It's kind of crazy even to think again, like what I was saying earlier, still wild to me. But he's the tear down king. All right, he's not here, but you're in the presence of a king. Put some damn respect on him. I mean, like realistically, like we were with Destination Debbie earlier, we had different chances to talk about that. And Mike, I think I'm not going to say he was the first person to ever use tear down, okay, but he definitely believes in that process a lot, and I think he was one of the people that talked about it, to for some people probably a nauseating amount of time to where now it's like it's very popular. People think about it and talk about it now. The newness of it, right? The novelty's gone.
Sure.
So I think the edge, and we talked about this about a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago on a Dynasty pod on BDGE. Speaking of Andrew, I don't know if you're still in here. If you remember this, like tearing down and kind of exploring options. And I think one of the things that you can still do now, and this is why, for example, WORP would be huge in a situation like this. I think cross-positional tear downs exist 10x to the point now where, like, it's just basically too simple, right? It's like, oh, hey, I've seen this trick before. I've seen you get over on people before with this trick before, right? I'm gonna send you my first and possibly get a guy in the same tier. No, I'm too smart for that now. But if you hit him with a wide receiver running back trade and there's a pick in there, now that tear down concept is not even just at the forefront of their mind, but it's basically like, I've seen this trick before. I've seen this card trick. This is a magic trick I'm not taking. No, I'm out.
Yeah, that was my next question, is like, what is the next whatever move on the chessboard in terms of that's being
40 more chess. Shout out to 40 chess. That was our first podcast on Destination Debbie. Love that.
So yeah, so I guess in the current, I don't know, what do you want to call it, meta, or like do you think that is cross positional trades? Do you think I know you were talking about before the stream started, like kind of tight end WORP. I know you guys have been talking about how you just don't think a lot of the tight ends are worth their weight. So I guess where do you think we're going next, or how are you approaching it?
Man, I tell you what, you ever done this before? You're like giving me these open-ended questions, and like I could just run with this.
Well, we're both.
I love the hosting style. I'm trying to.
We've never talked before, but I was like, I immediately just know from watching your content. I'm like, I know we could talk for 3 hours if we wanted to. So yeah,
easily. Yeah, we're into almost 40 minutes here, and feels like it's the early part of the show. That's funny. No, so. The future casting, right, is always it's a projection, and it's fun to think out. And we are still very new South Harmon relative to fantasy football, dynasty fantasy football, right? But if you look at, like, we talked about future casting out, like what quarterback would look like, and we were, I would say, ahead of the curve a little bit on this topic, where now I ended up having too much exposure last year to Anthony Richardson versus Jaden Daniels, and Mike had more Jaden Daniels. He basically got him every time ahead of me, and I also wanted to take Malik Neighbors. So there was I got the wrong damn Konami guy. Mike got the right one last year. But the point was, really, we did a podcast deep diving, and this was why I was higher on A-Rich, even though he flamed out, understanding that he's still, his dynasty values in the sewer. Like, it was worth the upside swing because he was so damn athletic. And when you look at quarterback scoring, even when it was more fruitful for the passing, like the pocket passers, to your point, the guys that can run and can run for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns, they're so few and far between.
Absolutely.
That floor is high, but they also, when they hit, like Lamar Jackson in his early years, everybody will, I can promise you, there's no one out here saying he was a great passer at that point in his career. People still don't think he's a good passer, even though I think he's hella improved.
Yeah, he is, for sure.
So, but guess what? He broke fantasy. And basically, when you see, that's why, for me, part of the conversation with like Cam Ward, for example, and nothing against Cam versus with Jaden Daniels is such a big difference, because Jaden Daniels, with the traits he possesses, if he hits, you can't acquire him now. He's in, to your point, when you're talking about that strategy of like, I want 2 elite, he's in untouchable territory. Cam Ward, if he hits, honestly, may never even be untouchable territory at all. And there's, I guess, also 2 things to consider there is where, for me, again, trading is such a big deal. There's what you're talking about with Jacob, and that the production side of things and the dynasty value side of things, and understanding how to speak to other managers, and that just because they don't have production when I draft them, or even if I don't think about their production, I could still trade the dynasty value if I can find the right person to trade with. So the future casting out, like, that was the quarterback in the past, so to speak. So we kind of were ahead of the curve on that, or talked about it a lot more. I think here's the thing, right? The space is always changing and evolving. And somebody, you know what? It was wasn't a D-Walk that put that super chat? You got to zig when zag when they zig.
Yeah, how do you zig when the rest of the league is zagging? Yep.
And you know what's crazy? I'll tell you when it happens, because I can't zig until someone, I can't, if you're going to do that, I have to wait to see what they do. I have to wait to see how the market corrects itself. I have to wait to see what now the majority of dynasty gamers are thinking. I have to try to figure out. I feel like a lot of times when I make content, I have this contrarian like view or style, and it's not by design. I don't want to like tell people, hey, you got to think this way. I know you don't think that way, but for me, that's where the edge is like, all right, this groupthink is very strong right here. Hold on, let's dig into the numbers. Let's dig into the information here. Are we missing something? Because what I found when I played early on, as if I don't mess up still today, that's not what I'm trying to say. I still have plenty of messes. But when I was missing early, I would have a crazy player take and bias towards one guy.
Yep.
And when I look back at I have all the complete information now, so it's a little bit of unfair advantage. But when I look back, I'm like, bro, you literally just avoided all the red flags, like literally all of them. You ignored them, didn't pay attention to them, and that's why you're in the situation you're at now. So for me, when I'm doing content, the way I do it is, again, with the way of playing. So I play, and I'm like, all right, there's some stuff going on with this specific player, right? Like Roma Dunze, right? I just did a breakdown on him. People are now even more so down because of the new target competition coming over. All right, but what? Let's dig into the numbers and the actual stuff here. And then when I start doing that, I then change the way I view the player, one way or the other, whether what the information is saying. And now if I feel strongly against what the groupthink is thinking, now I have the information, and I can put that research into a pretty cool piece of content. I feel like that's one of the things I'd like to do and do best, is at least giving you, hey, you go make the decision, but here's the other side that nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
This is what I'd like to propose to you.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think that, like, yeah, you're kind of talking about all these different ways of approaching things. And I think Mike brings up a good point. He said, I think the next frontier is to fade back to playing a dynasty league, like a dynasty league. I get it. 2 to 3 year windows, quarterbacks and wide receivers live. Yeah. So I think you brought something up that really piqued my interest or made me think is, like there's 2 different kinds of production, right? Or value. There's points in your lineup, and there's like just young guys that are going to hold their value. And I think early on, because I think when a lot of people, I won't speak for everyone, but like when you're first starting to play Dynasty, you just try to get the youngest team possible. And you're just worried about, oh my God, is this guy going to fall off a cliff in 5 years or whatever it is.
And you play in too long of windows. Sure.
Yeah. I think that's a huge mistake people make. And now, I mean, especially with so many leagues, right? Like I want to win some leagues, right? Like, so there's a way to balance it where, right? Like I'll I'll trade George Pickens when he was like a 4th or 5th round startup pick. You trade him, you tier down to like a whatever, Chris Godwin or whoever guy in that range, Mike Evans, and then maybe even if it's a second on top or whatever it is, you tier down. But it's also just in team building. It's okay to take some guys who are going to go to 0, right? Like it's okay to take a Derrick Henry. It's okay to take a Tyreek Hill, these older guys, because you can always you can hold value in different, whether it's different players, whether it's picks, whatever you're doing. And I think people are they either get locked. I think the problem is people get too locked into one or the other. They're either the perpetual rebuilder guy, and they never want to push their chips in, or they trade all their picks out through 2027 and they are just going all in this year, right? I think that is like one of the biggest traps you can fall into, is just be too one side or the other. And obviously there's certain leagues and certain situations where it does make sense to do that. Yeah. And like, let's just say I have an absolutely loaded team. Do I really care about trading my 26 first and second and try to get a guy that's actually going to give me more WORP and give me more points in my lineup this year? Probably not. I can make up for it if I have Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, right? Like, that's fine. I can always tear down if I need to and recoup that value. Sure. So yeah, I definitely just think that what you brought up is like really spurred that in my brain, because I find that very, very that's kind of across everyone I see. Very few people are kind of taking that into account. They're just thinking in like, okay, my team is good. I have older guys. I'm just going to go all in, when I almost feel like it should be the other way around, right? Like,
man,
yeah,
this is a good segue point for, okay. When I'm playing, when I like to play in a little bit of a weird hodgepodge of like high number of leagues, but want to be really in the trenches and understand the league dynamics, what you just hit on, right? This is, I would say, something that's people might call nerdy, goofy, whatever. I believe the way I like to play, I like to have, and I don't have it at 18 leagues because it is too hard to do it, but I have it in a handful of my leagues, and I literally have a notes page, and it can get extensive, and it's on my league mates that I'm playing with. And the reason this is important, I have found a lot of times when I'm sending out trade offers and don't get something done, there's a language barrier, right? And the reality is I'm trying to trade with one individual. So to that point, they view their team how they view their team. I could look at it and think about it whatever I want to. What I would basically do is go through, okay, I'm going through the history of their trades. I'm looking at what their team is. So I want to see what they've actually done in trades, what their team looks like, how they built, and then what are the offers they're sending me. When you start to connect the pieces there, a lot of times, way more often than not, you'll find a pattern. And the pattern is going to say, a lot of times it's a light bulb. Boom. Oh, okay. I've been viewing their team as this like rebuilder. Like, look at all these gross assets. They got to be in a rebuild. But you know what? This dude is not trying to rebuild at all. As a matter of fact, every trade he's sending, what he's trying to do, the trades he's getting done, he's trying to get running back production, whatever it may be, right? So the reason that's important is I basically categorize my league mates in the way that I'm viewing them and understanding the notes on them is like, okay, this person values this thing. And a lot of times there is not a lot of crossover. And for me, this is where what do you think of when you hear the word middleman? Go ahead, Bindles. Tell them what you think.
Middleman?
The middleman.
Yeah, trying to facilitate a deal, trying to bridge a gap between different parties and get something done. Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of times, because people are rigid in the way that they're either team constructing, roster constructing, how they view the assets, one of the things I like to try to do with understanding all this is now, like, I can be the middleman. And so I can go away from my roster construction if I have to, knowing how my other league mates are and where I can maybe move some of the pieces to them in a separate trade, or move players I already have on my roster and utilize these new ones I got in this trade to basically be a middleman at times. Like, it's not that plain and simple and obvious. It's not normally going to go like, hey, I just picked up Patrick Mahomes in that league, right? Now I can trade him away tomorrow. But I have done that before. T-Rock, shout out to T-Rock. He probably isn't here. This was a trade I did last year in Fade the Fetal. He wanted his flexibility back. So I'm gonna expose T-Rock here. Sorry, T-Rock, but one of the things
put him on blast.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, T-Rock, but I'm just gonna do it. Say it how it is. One of the we talk about having our flexibility. We like to have our flexibility, especially in a lineup league, because if things go awry, it could become super valuable. Like even if you get a second that goes to a 201, that's it's good, but it's not like if you don't have your early first, right?
You're screwed. Yeah.
Right. You feel like you got to get the pick back, and then you're in this weird spot. I'm not in the playoffs. I'm drawing my pick. You hate it.
I've been
You hate
there.
your life. We all, I'm sure I've been there for sure. I won't say everybody's been there, but I have been there for sure. And so what he likes to do is he likes to trade away, like let's say right now, he would trade away his 27. Now that's kind of a no-no because everyone really wants the 27 picks again. But point is he'll trade away 27. But he's trying to go, because he did this in the past, now he's got to go get back his 26 pick because he needs his flexibility back, right? So he almost like is mortgaging out a year worth of time and then gets it back, right? So he has to go find a way to get it back. So he wanted his pick back and his flexibility. At the time, Nico Collins was super polarizing last offseason. And so I was not even that much of a believer. They hadn't given the contract yet. I'm like, CJ Stroud's on a rookie deal. They could totally invest in a bunch of weapons, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, you know what? Nico's market right now is crazy. So just giving him his 25 first and a third last year to get Nico, even if I don't believe in Nico, I can probably flip Nico now. And that's when I actually did flip right away, where I took on Nico and I immediately moved him to the guy that had CJ Stroud. Right? I knew I already had conversations and understanding with how he plays. And he told me he valued stacks because I had Jaden Reed at the time and he had Jordan Love. I also knew he had CJ Stroud. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do this, man. I'm going to go ahead and send T-Rock back his flexibility for Nico. And I knew at the time, like, if I got stuck with that trade, right? I think this is one thing about trading. Trades to me are done in multiples. If you just look at any one trade, you could lose it in a hurry. You could lose it bad.
Oh yeah, you can't control for every factor, right? Like you don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, so I'm like, okay, if I get stuck with Nico, like I may have to live with the results, right? And I may look back like, why did I do this? But I was kind of betting and mortgaging that on, okay, let me move Nico now. And I moved Nico for the 104, which became Elite Neighbors. So I just understand that was a middleman trade that took place in literally within 24 hours. But I now have what I put as my wide receiver one in Dynasty, hot take, get people upset. But a tier 1, tier 2 receiver for a 25 first and third of T-Rocks. And I know he didn't like that angle. And he was very mad at shout out Guzman for making that trade with me. But again, that's one of those things talking about the language barrier, understanding like he could have absolutely just traded Nico to him straight up for the 104 instead of trying to get his flexibility back. But he was focused on what? Getting his pick back. Sometimes if you go in with these preconceived notions and you're so rigid, you miss out on endless opportunities that are basically being willing to be flexible and understanding all the different dynamics there. So sorry if that was long-winded or wordy, but I feel like there's a lot there to digest. But it's really, if you can try to be a little more against the grain and the way that you trade and roster construct and go away from that at times, huge rewards can be reaped.
No, that's exactly how I think about it as well. Is like you're kind of stacking deals, right? Like let's say whatever, you need a quarterback and you've reached out to every single one of these managers and they will just not give you a fair what you value market deal. Okay, maybe I trade for a wide receiver, right? A young, sexy wide receiver that someone wants. And then whether it's right now and you can flip them right away, but maybe it's closer to the season. Maybe someone else goes down and he goes up in value or whatever it is. I 100% agree with that. And actually, yeah, I'm down at my phone because I wanted to pull up these trades good, that I buddy. Did in the other day because that was literally exactly what I was thinking.
You don't have to apologize. We're on your time, buddy. You pull up the phone, you pull up the trades, you got the show, man. Run it. You good?
So yeah, let me see. Oh, I guess I can just share my screen.
Yeah,
actually, I'll just go through it.
Show us the underwear drawer. Let's see it, you know? These are you're trying to pull up trades? Or...
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull it up here because I'm sure. So okay. So the first deal I did, this is a team. Let me pull it up so I can give you the context.
Cool.
So this is a team where I have Josh Allen, Kenneth Walker, I had Devontae Adams, Trey McBride, David Njoku, and then I had May and Justin Herbert. So I had kind of a log jam at quarterback, and it's just a lot of value
But you had Allen, and you also had Herbert, and you had May, right?
May
so
as well, because I
kind of like the older and younger version of the same idea here.
Exactly.
Right.
But I didn't. I mean, I had Trey McBride. Like, it's probably a team that I could compete, but a lot of the heavy lifting would have been on Trey McBride, Josh Allen, and then I'm kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of trying to piece it together, and I just don't feel like I'm really getting the most out of the value that I have on my team. Like, I have a high value team, but it's not really where I want it to be. When I can try
the production is going to be stable enough to really make the bet to push in. Yeah,
exactly. So the first move I made, because I had, like I said, I had May and Herbert. So the first move I made was Herbert for Nico straight up. I mean, Nico's a first round pick and underdog. You can have a player take on him, but I think Herbert, is he good? Can he give you a big season, like a Burrow season? He probably can. I don't know if he'll do it necessarily in this current iteration of the Chargers offense, but
yeah.
So yeah, I was like, okay, I can take that L, even if Herbert does go back up to a first round startup pick, I'm still fine with the production that Nico's going to give me. So that was the first move I did.
Interestingly enough, like, whatever you think of that trade, and believe me, we have a lot of we also have, and we embrace sometimes the quarterback horde. So people sometimes get big mad about that type of a trade. But just startup value right now at the moment. You're talking about asset 20 and asset 22. Shout out to Dynasty Day Lab. It's
exactly,
it's super close in ADP. So
yeah, so I mean, I'm fine with that. Especially, like I said, like, I've kind of come back around on the quarterbacks, especially the pocket passing ones.
Sure.
So yeah, basically this whole off season, I've been trying to shop Herbert and May, one or the other. So I made that move first, but then I was talking already with another manager for May. So then I ended up doing kind of some secondary moves here as well. Oh wait, did I send? Oh no, here we go. Why is it not open?
It's all right. Here we go, baby. We're ready.
So then I made a couple secondary trades. So then I was talking to another manager about Drake London, and so I did these right back to back, right after each other. So I traded May for London, May and a 26 second for London and Stafford. So Stafford, I think, can give me pretty similar production to May. I mean, I don't know. That's up in the air. Obviously, he's older, so he's not as stable of an asset.
Listen, production wise, I would be willing to make the bet on Stafford. Now, obviously, we understand the shelf life and the market of Drake May.
Sure.
Right? But yeah, production-wise, 1 year bet this year with Devontae Adams in that system, of course.
Yeah, and then London, second round pick. I mean, I think whatever. It's kind of a flat tier and underdog, but it's like, yeah, you could make a case for a maybe 1-2 turn, middle of the second round. Going to give you a lot of production in my lineup, right? So, and still a pretty stable asset as well. Could even still go up a couple picks. So I did that, and then I have Allen, Stafford as my quarterbacks, and then I moved my 26th first.
So you have Allen, Stafford, and no quarterback 3 at the moment, right?
No quarterback 3 at the moment,
yep.
Because I traded both May and Herbert. But
I'm just trying to follow along, like in the
order. It's a lot of moving pieces. Yeah.
No, it's good. I feel like I'm trying to say it aloud so that everyone else, because we don't see it, so I'm trying to just give that secondary feel.
You're a true professional. So then I'm pretty high on Lawrence this year with BTJ and Hunter personally. So I traded my 26 first. Like I said, I think this is a pretty high value team, so I'm a little bit more willing to part with that first. I think I can recoup it with the pieces I have. The 201, which I like the players of the 201, like Caleb Johnson, Luther Burden. I like those guys, but not a must have player. And then Jordan Mason for Trevor Lawrence. So now I have Josh Allen,
the Vikings Mason, the 201, and what was the other piece?
A 26 first.
Okay, and a 26 first for T-Law.
Yep. So now instead of kind of being thin at wide receiver, relying on Josh Downs, Devontae Adams, these guys where it's like, okay, yeah, they could be okay, right? Especially Adams for his cost, he definitely could pay off. But now I just feel like I have a much more well-balanced roster where I still have the value. I've shifted it around, and I'm getting a lot more points into my lineup. So now, before where I had Herbert and May and one of them was just going to sit on my bench, and I can't use them. So now my starting lineup is in Superflex. It's Josh Allen, Kenneth Walker. I have a bunch of RB2s, Ray Davis, Tyler Algier. I can always figure out RB2. Nico Collins, Drake London, Devontae Adams, and then I have Njoku and McBride. It's a 0.5 tight end premium, so I feel like I can flex McBride. I don't know what the WORP would say on that, but
we could always run it. But I'm listening. Go ahead.
And then I have Josh Downs and a few other ancillary pieces that I can fill into my flex if I need to. So go
ahead.
So yeah, I just feel like that's like I'm kind of middling it. Like I said, like I'm not going all in. I'm not just like having only win now pieces. I'm not just having value sitting on my bench where I'm not really using it. I'm really maximizing the value that I have on my team into my lineup.
Right.
And I still have flexibility if I want, right? Like if I want to tier down from someone, I can and get that flexibility back, but it's just kind of best of both worlds. So yeah, that was during the rookie draft. I just was like trying to make moves all off season, couldn't get it done. And then finally during the rookie draft, kind of people are more active and willing to make moves. So yeah.
It's interesting as I'm listening to that and how you walking through that. There's a lot of points that I've talked about in like the niche specific part of what took place there for you, where like understanding the cycles of your league, right? I feel like a lot of times in dead periods, people can get frustrated that trades don't happen, and it's like, I hear you, but understand that this is just universally a time where people don't make a lot of trades, and a lot of the reason is just one, the rookie information is incomplete, right? So they don't know what to think about the rookie class. They don't know what to think about the pick values. And then all of a sudden, when the rookie euphoria hits that peak and we have draft capital landing spot, you saw Keep Trade Cut actually put out a tweet how all the people that were first round picks, once their draft capital was solidified, so the 101 to 112 in their rookie ranks, they all went like this. And we knew Genty was going to be 101.
Yeah, we knew all these guys,
right? Because the information becomes complete, right? And again, you have to think about it for the other person. Like, just because you want to make a trade right now really bad doesn't mean that anybody else has the same stakes on the line for when they want to make their trades. So the cycle that you touched on, right? Understanding that now there's a big window in trade opportunity because it's active. Active is your league is getting more active, I should say. Terrible wording on that, but you know what I meant. Hopefully, the other thing you played into, which I love to do, is if you are trying to get a league kickstarted in more of an inactive period, it really works when it's the draft and it's active.
Sure.
What you did is to me the snowball effect, right? You get one trade, people see that. Believe it or not, there's a lot of psychology that goes into this. There's a dopamine effect, right? So
100%.
They open their phone, okay, trade. Oh, it's not mine. Hey, wait, he got what? Like, all that takes place, and now they're looking at their team, and they may feel a little bit less secure about their team, and they're like, I kind of want to make a trade. And if you continue to push the buttons and push, the envelope, and now there's a second trade done, and your team is shifting, right? They start saying, oh, wait a minute. Now they feel less secure to just stay pat with their own, and they'll start going out and making offers and trades. And in an inactive period, you can kick up the activity that way, though. You know what the problem is? You know what you have to do to probably get the activity started if you're not in a window like that is you're not gonna be able to send out these fleece offers and someone's not just going to in an inactive period take your shitty offer to let you start the snowball. Like sometimes you have to make a trade where that Nico Collins trade actually was to start the snowball. Like I didn't want to make that trade, honest to God. I knew there was a risk that I was taking, but I'm like, you know what? I got to try to do this because my team was in shambles and I needed to make a bunch of moves. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But then also, what I wanted to touch on from a secondary part of that point. But if you had something to say about that, I want to let you chime in.
No, keep going. You're rolling. I like it.
Okay, so then, one of the things is quarterback hoarding, right? If you believe in quarterback hoarding, again, where for me it's 18 leagues, quarterback hoarding in and of itself doesn't exist without scarcity and without league dynamics. A specific league dynamic, right?
Yeah.
That's not a portfolio thing. Now, you can use it in a portfolio, but understand quarterback hoarding is not a portfolio strategy. Meaning, in a portfolio, nobody's looking at their lack of quarterback at their teams, right? That's a league-specific dynamic. So, what I'm talking about here, I want to get to is leverage. what you had right there was leverage. Now, let me ask you, when you're looking at your dynasty team, just this is a generic statement question, no right or wrong answer. You answer it how you want to. When you look at your teams, like when you're looking at your dynasty team, what's the first thing you do when you open up the Sleeper app? You're looking through, like, what are you looking at?
Yeah, like I said, I still have that tie to quarterbacks and tight end, not so much anymore, but really it's like, elite difference making guys. I want as many of those as I can have. Yeah. And otherwise I just want the Jacoby Myers. I want the Jawan Jennings. I want these guys where I feel like I'm getting similar production to guys that are much more expensive for the same price. And I'm really just trying to leverage, like, if I have a guy like I like Herbert and I like May, obviously, but do I really think they're going to give me like crazy production over a Stafford or over a Lawrence or something like that? Probably not. Right. So if I can with that example, like if I can shift between a Josh Downs to a Drake London or like a Nico Collins, where these guys I think can give me 20 plus points a game. So that's kind of how I approach all running back. I'm a little bit more. I still want the difference makers. Like Achane, I feel like is really cheap right now, and all off season I've been trying to acquire a ton of him because I just think he has league breaking upside, and people are willing to part ways with him just because of their preconceived notions of him. Yeah, but like for the most part, like I will go into a season with insert RB2, RB3, like Brian Robinson and whoever you want to say, James Conner or David Montgomery, even lower than that.
Yeah, I have a team right now that has Najee still as my running back 2 at the moment, which I don't love, but it's literally in my lineup. Like when you look at the sleeper team, you know. Like,
that's I have a ton of those teams. So yeah, and like you said, in terms of like process of what I do when I first open Sleeper app, it's also like the way I set up my teams is kind of like if I have a spot where I'm going to be streaming RB2 or I have a guy that I could put in my flex, but I'm just like, okay, he's not a solidified guy where I'm just like pretty much starting him every week. I'll just leave it open. So then I'm kind of like thinking through, right? Like I'll go through. Yeah.
You answered my question the way that I wanted you to get to that point. I love it. Keep going. Finish though.
Yeah. I'm just rambling, but
no, you're good. You're good. You're not rambling at all.
But yeah, so that's kind of how, like, also having 50 plus leagues, I kind of have to be able to evaluate a league at any one moment, just right as I'm sitting in bed laying and looking through some teams or, so yeah, that helps me definitely just organize my teams, organize where I have perceived holes. And and then I'll just go through whenever I have time throughout the week, whenever it is, and try to just evaluate, okay, like, where can I make a move here? Like right now with rookies, right? Like if I can try to trade a guy where I think he still has the name value for a rookie, where I feel like his value upside is a lot higher and his production won't be that much different, and I can backfill it I'll keep bringing up Jacoby Myers because he's my guy, but
yeah, somebody needs to, especially now that they took Jack Besh. It's like he'll never talk about Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of just always being aware of where your team stands and just doing an honest look over it and just being like, okay, like, is this a guy that I'm like it's at the end of the day, am I like, okay, this is a guy where I'm like, I need to have him. He's a difference maker. I'm willing to bet this incoming season that he's going to be a guy you need that will be a league winner, versus a guy where I'm like, okay, I like him. He's a fun player, but if I need to make a move to kind of improve my team, I'll do it. So I think that's, long-winded answer.
No, you actually, I respect the take, but it was actually pretty well done. I appreciate it. And the reason I wanted to hear that, right? I think sometimes people don't appreciate enough other POVs, right? And just literally because I have, like, I'll tell you, there was no right or wrong answer, but I have kind of the process on both sides of this thing where people are going to eventually lean in and lie on this. It's going to be one of two things, basically inherently. Now, the reason I say that, right? If you're talking about the quarterback hoarding strategy, right? Now, you didn't have a true quarterback hoard there, right? You would just say, though, and I think we all would probably agree, dynasty value-wise, you had excess of dynasty value pocketed in that position group relative to what was going to make most sense to actually land production. So you're trying to maneuver and move dynasty value, shift it into a more efficient way to produce, right? And so the reason I asked that question, when you got to it, you're like, hey, if I have a hole in my lineup, I'll leave it empty. When everybody opens their sleeper app, this is just how it works. Okay, it's almost like if you reading, you start from the beginning and you get to the end. You don't read backwards. You look at your starting lineup. The first thing you look at when you look at your team is going to be your quarterback, and you go down and running back, right? Stress is caused by the feeling of something being unresolved. Now, if you know what it is and you address it, you can get rid of the stress, right? Sometimes, though, you may not even know what it is, but you have stress because you have inaction. You don't know how to get rid of the stress because you don't know necessarily what's wrong. But when you're getting rid of stress, this is literally for dynasty gamers, right? The stress is I look at my starting roster and I don't like it, right? I want it to be fixed. I want it to be solved right now. So a lot of off-season trades are specifically to this psychological point, right? I look at my roster and I want it to be better. I want it to be more constructed the way I want it to. You operated in those trades via roster construction, right? And I think one of the things that people definitely have the ability individually to control much more so than leverage and league mates is roster construction. So not that you got there the wrong way. I'm not saying there is a right or wrong way, but I just want to talk about the two different scenarios here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you want to get roster construction done, you want to see your team more complete. The way in which you went about those trades makes a ton of sense, and it worked out really well, depending on who you're talking to, right? It's because some people with leverage may say, no, you should get more for Justin Herbert. You should get more for, who was the other one you said? Drake
May, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So now to this point, this is one of the things with leverage that is important. Leverage only works when you use the leverage at the proper time. Like if I have leverage over you and you don't care because for you, your roster is complete, what does it matter? So it's very hard without more excess to in the offseason actually force your will with that leverage, so to speak, right? So you have to try to play into roster construction there. The fact that you have 3 quarterbacks, nobody cares probably at the moment, right? They either don't have to set their lineup or they think they have a good quarterback.
They haven't cared all offseason for 4 months. Yeah, definitely.
Right. And when you get closer into the season, when there's attrition, all of a sudden someone has a hole, to your point, at the quarterback position. And I have Justin Herbert and Drake May. You know what I have now? And I have timing and leverage. Now you can get bent, right? But that dynamic doesn't work just whenever you want it to work. So one of the things I think in general that I'm trying to make the point here, trying to be a little clear and concise about it. A lot of times people don't even realize they have leverage, and they don't realize they have leverage, and they don't realize what they miss because they are too in a hurry to get something done. Point I'm making here is if you had that type of scenario or you were in a quarterback horde, what you have to have is patience. Like, because if you want to utilize the leverage, it's got to be on the other person's time, or you have to do something like continue to acquire more quarterbacks to create that leverage timing. It's not just all of a sudden, oh, I have 4 quarterbacks, no one's going to come pay me. I need to sell these guys cheap. That's the whole dynamic of the game in the quarterback horde is it's a dance. And it's like playing chicken. Who's going to get out of the way first? If you hold and hold and hold, it's great, but you need to make sure you actually utilize the leverage when you have it, and that timing is key on that. So not that you can't do roster construction, but that's the whole game there.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. I think, yeah, it's a hard balance because I completely agree. Like, I think when I first started playing, I was more focused on like my obviously lineup in the off season. You don't have a lineup until week 1. So like, I think, but yeah, so it's a balance between, well, how do I put this? Like it's a balance.
Jeremy, my bad. Jeremy says, came for some dynasty talk, leaving with some relieving stress advice.
So yeah, it's kind of a balance between I could wait longer and wait for the perfect moment. And do I feel like I'm getting a deal where I feel comfortable? I could lose it, but I just feel comfortable striking while the moment's hot. So it's like it's a mental math.
I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer.
Yeah, no. I don't think that. Yeah, but I because I agree with you. I think some people overvalue just like filling their whatever. Like, oh, I need to trade for Brian Robinson in May to fill my RB2 spot just because.
Right.
Where I feel like I'm a little bit more inclined to do it. Yeah, for guys where I consider it a difference maker, and it just comes with me playing in so many leagues and experience where I feel like obviously when you're just starting, you might rely, whether it's a calculator or advice from other people or whatever. I think now I'm at a point where it's like I'm just kind of freeballing it, and I am doing the mental math in my head where I feel like this gamble is going to pay off, and it might not, but that's where I'm going to throw my chips in. So, but no, I appreciate that. You're right. There is no right or wrong answer. There's no perfect way to approach it.
Well,
so.
and here's what I want to kind of bridge the gap here and talk about this, because I think what you hit on right there is really important. And okay, so let's try to. This is a fun little exercise I have to do now in life. It's sometimes it's with my 3-year-old, but sometimes it's with my Dynasty degenerates. Same thing. Like let's try to have these two worlds of views and thinking. So if you're in this leverage game, right? You're like, nah, quarterback hordes, quarterback values to the moon, quarterback. No, that was a stupid trade for Nico. Okay, what is with the leverage? Let's say you want to play up the leverage. This is where I think it's important to think about the merging of these two worlds if you can try to. What's the goal with the quarterback horde, right? If you quarterback horde, you're eventually going to want to do what? Get a stud in a different position, right? It's a whole idea. Now, you can argue the specific player, the specific return, you should get this Nico, whatever. But if you're arguing Nico's not high enough, like Nico for me is wide receiver fucking 8, y'all. Like, so just understand that if you want higher, if you want to play out the leverage game, what are we shooting for? Like, what does it need to be? Does it need to be Malik Neighbors? Does it need to be Justin Jefferson? Does it need to be Jamar Chase? And then what's the realistic outcome for you to actually be able to get those players? Like, what are we holding out for what are we holding out for by using the leverage?
Yeah.
What is the difference in cost, opportunity, potential for you to reward it realistically to your team? For Nico Collins, you could argue maybe you could get up to maybe CeeDee Lamb potentially somehow. But is it worth for you the risk of getting CeeDee Lamb versus Nico Collins? And then ultimately, at the end of the day, what are we making? The bet on what is their production? Are we sure CeeDee Lamb's going to outscore Nico Collins for the season? So that's where I think it's important to think about all the dynamics, y'all. There's a lot of different things there where if you believe that you should be getting a better return for the quarterback, fine, but work with me. Show me your work. What is the end? What am I holding out for? Not saying you can't say you want to hold out for, but just understand, are you holding out thinking you're going to get the top 3 receiver? Where are they coming from? Who has the top 3 receiver? Like, and now if you're telling me that it's a lot lower, like you're getting T. Higgins for Justin Herbert, maybe we should push back a little more. Maybe you should hold out a little more, right? But like, I guess that process and that song and dance is kind of merging those two worlds for how you should and how you want to maneuver your team accordingly with the leverage and the roster construction game you're trying to play. Yeah,
it's like, yeah, what the thing you have in your hand is worth more than like the theory. Well, yeah, it's like you can edge out. I think that's the same thing with trades we were talking about, right? Like, okay, like by the calculator or by my subjective opinion, like I should be getting a third back or whatever, like something back. But I mean,
some kind of artificial value.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
But it's like at the end of the day, is that third really going to matter? Like it could, of course, it could be Puka Nacua, it could be whoever, but like, what are the chances of that actually happening? And would you rather just like get the ball rolling and kind of go in the direction you want to go? So yeah, but I agree. I mean, and there's times, right? Like there's times where I'm like, okay, I don't feel comfortable with this return. And maybe it was to my downside to just be holding that on my team, and just then they get injured, they go down in value, I'm screwed, and I end up not being able to do what I want. Right. So yeah, it's very, you have to balance it, and it's like I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. It's a case by case basis. So, but no, it's a good point, because people I think are either same thing. We keep saying like they're dichotomous. They're just on one side or the other. Like I'm just going to hoard all these quarterbacks, or I'm going to just be a guy who rosters the minimum viable quarterback and not care about quarterback or whatever. So
sure, and it's basically like to your point. So if you have an actual quarterback horde going, you probably are. Your roster construction is not intact, I would imagine. Now, here's the cheat code. The cheat code is if you rebuild enough while quarterback hoarding. I'll just tell you because I have a team. Somehow it lost in the championship actually, but this team it scored is best ball league scored 1,000 points more than the second place team in the regular season. Didn't lose a game for 2 years, but I did lose in the championship somehow this year. So anything's possible. Anything's possible. However, that team was built off of rebuilding, trading away all for futures, a lot of leveraging tactics, right? Getting people's future when their team event. If you have 9 first, you're going to have teams that miss the playoffs future. And now you have again all the different points of leveraging. But then when you have a quarterback horde and you don't have to remaneuver it into roster construction, if you can keep doing your roster construction and keep the quarterback horde, that's kind of like you could cheat code it that way. But most people don't want to wait for 3 years to do that, right? So that's to your point with the roster construction. Like, hey, I think what you did and the return you got there was a perfect threading of the needle to like what you're shooting for theoretically an upside by waiting. I don't think made a lot of sense. Would not have made a lot of sense. Like Drake London, Nico Collins. Even if you think you want to get closer to the receivers there, higher up, you're already in a position to. If I have Nico, if I have Drake London, I probably am in a conversation bringing them to the table already of Malik or Justin Jefferson if you want to go get that at some point anyway. So I think what you did was well. I was just trying to use your example here as a good medium, right? To say, hey, these are some things to think about, because if you're going to do the quarterback horde, you have to have some stones and you have to understand the leveraging game that you're playing. And it comes down to other people. That's what I guess that's the other thing about it. Again, when you make a trade, it's with one other person. You wanted to control your own destiny and get your roster construction done now. Cool. And that's fine. But understand, if you're going to leverage quarterbacks out, it's not going to come on your time. And if you do try to make it on your time, you're not going to play up the leverage that you have. Yeah.
I mean, and I just was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to get a better deal in the future. Like, people are motivated right now. Let's just get it done.
And you had a very hot window, right? A very hot window of trade activity to try to capitalize. 100%.
Yeah. So this is a good question. I'll give it to you and ask you, because this kind of goes into what we're talking about now.
Quarterback horde question, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I'm at 205 right now, and Dart is sitting there. I don't need quarterbacks though, since I have Josh Allen, Burrow, and Goff. I'm a heavy contender as well. Do I still take Dart or take Trey Harris / Jack Bash? So what? Yeah. There you go. That's a perfect parlay into that.
Hey, is this a high risk? I always try to say the name when I have no reason to need it. But listen, I think that what I'd love to know, and to answer my questions the best of my ability, I would love context, and I'd love to ask you too many things, but it's for me important. So the reason I'm saying that and asking that, what are we talking about here? Is it 10 teams? Is it 12 team? Is it lineup start 9, start 10? Is it lineup start 12? All these things are really important here. If I'm thinking about this, it's a 12-team league, okay? Let's say lineup start 10. By the way, if you're still here, put the real answer down here, and let's
assume 12-team start 10 or 11.
Yeah. So 12-team start 10, right? So if that's the case, what you're weighing here is, okay, what, at least for me, the way I think about it, and I would be using WORP here with the scoring settings to even further play this up. But what is Trey Harris and Jack Bash for me? If I draft them on my team, like, what are they slotting in? What do I project for them? Are these guys that give me a nice little bit of depth at my receiver position? Like, how many receivers do I have with roster construction? I like to typically on a roster like that, I like to have 6 or 7 wide receivers where Jacoby Myers would meet my roster construction. What I mean by that is, like, they don't all have to be elite starters, but if I have to, whether it's bye weeks or injuries, put Jacoby Myers into my flex, I feel fine. I feel fine, right? That's the threshold. So Trey Harris and Jack Bash, I think, meet the roster construction threshold. However, talking about production and dynasty value, are these guys realistic bets I should be counting for production right now? Because what are you missing here? I don't need quarterbacks, and you think he may not start. So there's a time thing, and you're like, oh, I may not be able to use Jackson Dart. Are you going to be using Bash? Are you going to be using Trey Harris? This is the question. A lot of times it doesn't get answered or like thought about enough.
Yeah.
That's the question here, right? So that's why I want to know the lineup context. If you're telling me right now, like Jack Bech is a perfect fit for your team to be wide receiver 5, and if you have 4 receivers you like to play on a weekly basis, hey, he comes and slides in right away and is a power slot in Chip Kelly's offense. Boom, done. Let's go ahead and just solidify that potentially. The thing about it is, just because you don't need quarterbacks doesn't mean that in a 12-team league, someone else won't when bye weeks and attrition happen. So what you're playing here is the leverage game if you don't go ahead and take the Jackson Dart bet. One of the reasons I think that's important. In a quarterback horde, I think where people can go wrong a lot of different ways, but I don't now have to move. With my quarterback room, right? And what you were talking about with roster construction, how you want to move and operate with your QBs. You have Allen, you have Burrow, you have Goff. When Jackson Dart inevitably becomes the starter, whether it's this year, next year, whatever, a lot of people are, all right, now what are you going to move Jackson Dart for? That doesn't have to be the question. That's not the question. You have 4 quarterbacks. What can you move Goff for? What could you move Burrow for? Are you comfortable trading Burrow or Allen? Are these non-movable assets for you? And if you're saying Goff's your quarterback 3, do you need to have a quarterback 3? Speaking of WORP and insurance, is Goff too much? Do you over leverage insurance on Jared Goff? If you have to play him on a weekly basis, can you move that for something else in your team? Which, when you move Goff straight up, you're probably going to get a receiver better than Trey Harris or Jack Bech. And now, what is your team? Leveled up. So that I think is the big overarching like push and pull here. And sometimes people just want to know, I just want the receiver. I want to see my receiver right now. And when you do think, it takes time. Everything good you ever had in life, all the things you love, it probably took some time. You probably had to take some time to go to school. You probably had to take some time to build your career up. Like the stuff that happens at a snap of a finger sometimes isn't the best thing.
That's super good point. Yeah, I like the point you made about it also like you said, yeah, if it frees you up to be able to move a Goff or if you want to move a Burrow, whatever. That's kind of the situation I was just in, right? Like you're just like I have extra and now I can play around with it and make moves off of it. I have that leverage. So yes, really like that point.
Exactly to what you just said. It's like it still goes to the same game you were talking about with the quarterback room. You're just moving the pieces around, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk tight ends, because I know you guys are the WORP stars. Yeah. So how do you feel about the current landscape of tight end and say like a 0.5 tight end premium? Like, is it just McBride and Bowers where you feel like those are the guys that can really give me difference making production, and the rest of them I'll just pick whoever is there from the litter, or because I actually don't know what you think about that or how you would approach that. So I'm interested to hear.
I hope you got some time. Well, I'm just kidding, but it's a good question. One, I would say to the question there's a couple questions you threw at me, but the most recent one you said, which was like, who do I project to be there? Yeah, I mean, Bowers and Trey McBride definitely would be 2. I would say that I feel confident. I always ask myself, right, when I'm talking about this thing, though, like, how confident do I feel in tight end X you're going to be drafting being a top 6, top 3 tight end? Tight end 12 doesn't matter at all. No. Right? So, and that's why WORP is really important here, because what I can guarantee you, like, I would bet things that I should not actually be betting, like my house, like things that are important in my life that are a half tight end premium WORP line. The tight end position is pretty damn irrelevant. Now, even in a non-tight end premium league, the elite tight end still can give you a WORP advantage, right? It's just when you look at the line as a whole, when you're looking at the WORP, the wins over replacement player relative to other skill players is going to be leaps and bounds different. Yeah. Right. So the cost investment is, one, we're terrible. We're terrible at predicting what tight ends are going to be top 3 and top 6 every year. I was in that big money Fade the Field league. No, Fade the Field is different BDGE league. Sorry, it's your idiot league mates. They did a whole YouTube channel on this. It's a redraft league with freaking huge,
all the big names,
money, 5K or whatever it was. Right? You know who was drafted to not be a tight end 1 on anyone's team and almost went undrafted? Brock Bowers.
Well, that's wild.
It's redraft league, but redraft league, right? But my point is, I'm talking about production right now, right? Like, we're terrible at guessing who's going to be the top 3. We there's injuries. There's players that kind of just disappoint relative to what their expectations are. Kelsey has kind of ruined in the past the idea here, right? Mark Andrews for a little bit, right? Darren Waller for 2 years, right? So you start chasing this tight end. Brock Bowers is about to disturb the entire space because it's inconceivable to be chasing this type of a thing. Brock Bowers' production and all that. Because here's the reality. For when I go to the bigger question you asked, I believe the biggest gap, the biggest language barrier is dynasty value in these young elite value tight ends and production. I don't believe there's a single bigger gap in anything. Because tell me right now, top 10 tight end, what we think their production is getting. Dalton Kincaid, Andrew, if you're still here, he's probably not. He fought me. Like we didn't actually fight, but it was close. We were getting ready to go to blows of like Dalton Kincaid is going to outscore George Kittle last year. I'm like, dude, no, I want Kittle. And if you're giving me any odds, I really want Kittle. It's revisionist history, meaning I already know what happened. So like, sure. But
sure.
Dalton Kincaid was a bet that everyone was sure. Josh Allen, he's going to be a top 3 guy. And when you have now the dynasty value, you're relying on production that's a wish cast thinking, right? Realistically, we don't know it. We're projecting it. And his dynasty value now is putting him into 2nd round, 3rd round startup territory. Like the opportunity cost, just in general, forget the tight end premium for a second, is too much. Now we go to half point tight end premium. Like Brock Bowers is ruining the case here because he was the tight end 1 and was, the young stud. And Sam Laporta, it's so crazy.
Sam
Laporta was the version that was an errant one of this, right? Like we were sure Sam Laporta was going to be the tight end 1 for forever. So to me, it's just the dynasty value that I can maneuver off of with these elite tight ends, put them into my roster construction, and then bet on production from tight ends like David Njoku, who went all the way down, came back up. Evan Ingram came back up, right? These guys have a chance to be top 6 tight ends. Very much hold serve, so to speak, with your tight end production, even if you have an elite one, and you paid up the crazy cost versus I have a person that most people will not trade a 1st round pick for. So that's the big reasoning why I think in general I don't like investing in those tight ends, because I've gone down that path and been burned. Here's the other thing to consider too, is even if you hit now, like you spend all that money, that cost per se, a huge cost. Now you also need for the production side to actually matter. Brock Bowers has to not just be tight end 1. He's got to score WORP again. He's got to be Kelsey. Yeah. Right. He's got to be ahead of tight end 2 and 3 to the point where it's breaking and wreaking havoc in your league. Like the bets are multifaceted. It's not just one bet on these, right? And now Colson Loveland, for example, he jumps in tight end 5. I'm looking right now. He's ahead of Kittle. He's around 5 startup pick. This is just how half point tight end premium on Dynasty Day Lab.
Yep.
Cool. Top 10 pick. Like Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden. I mean, he's going to be a boom or bust tight end, like being honest to God, for production, even if he hits right now. So, like to me, it's just it's crazy. Now here's the one caveat and the one place you can be errant is, again, dynasty value can trade. Now in the leagues I play in, I know people aren't going to trade crazy for these tight ends and the dynasty value they have, but Dalton Kincaid, his production in rookie year wasn't elite, but you know what happened? His dynasty value went up.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that the market, when they don't agree with the line of thinking here, it's still going to be inherently built in and baked into the dynasty cost. So that's what you're losing out on. Brock Bowers, while I still believe very much so that I'm making the right process play, where I was wrong and where I cost myself a ton of dynasty value was selling him out early, selling out the pick of him at the prior cost, because now he's to the moon.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, some of my favorite moves I've made this offseason are guys that I think can give you that top 6 production at the cheaper cost. You mentioned one in Njoku. I still like Mark Andrews. I still have a lot of them from when he was valued higher, but I think he goes like round 9, round 10. Lamar, he's still probably going to catch 10 touchdowns, and he was injured to start the year last year. Like, I think he's a pretty good bet for especially the range you get him for non-difference making guys. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other ones.
Can I give you my? If you want to play,
I was going to ask you yours. Yeah.
If you're telling me right now, I got to make a bet on who's going to be the tight end 1, even if I can pick Brock Bowers, you know what I'm taking?
I have no idea.
Chat, come on. Somebody stand up. Somebody come out and say it. What's up? The guy who's going to be coming off of last year being injured, fully healthy, a year removed from the injury, TJ Hockenson. Already seen it before. Already done it before. If you believe in JJ McCarthy, we saw what Sam Darnold did last year. Like, JJ McCarthy could end up just doing what Sam Darnold did, and if TJ Hockenson's healthy for the full year, he could be tight end 1. And guess what? Right now, he's very, very much not thought of, out of the conversation. And basically, that's the thing, right? Whether you believe, whether you're like that's a hot take or not, or you agree with it.
No, I don't think it's that hot at all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just speaking more so to probably the YouTube haters out there. No, I'm just playing with it. No, I mean, whether you agree with my take there, that's why I'm so much more comfortable, because I feel like I can find a TJ Hockenson, I can find a David Njoku, I can find a Tucker Kraft, and I prefer to try to hold serve with you. Not to mention, you know what happens if I get TJ Hockenson and he outproduces Brock Bowers and you use the pick 8 on him? Not good things for you and me in that same league, buddy. You know,
you're going to get more production somewhere else. Yeah,
exactly. And but that's the thing. If I happen to take TJ Hockenson, let's see where he's going for the record. TJ Hockenson is going in the 7th round. He's behind Jordan Addison. It's crazy to me. If he ends up being tight end 1 and I draft him there, and you drafted Brock Bowers at pick 8, like that's in the range of outcomes. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's in the range of outcomes. Like, I already win if TJ Hockenson gives me 85-90% of the production. If he outscores you, I mean,
then you're lapping the field. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I think Kittle is another one. I like Tucker Kraft, but the real thing about the Packers offense is they have a lot of pieces, and it's a projection for him to get more than maybe 100 targets at most. Like, he's not going to get that many targets, so he's going to have to run really, really hot on efficiency. If I'm going to make that bet, I'd rather just make the bet on Kittle, who we've seen do it before and we know is that guy. Sure. So I've made a couple Tucker Kraft plus a little bit, or Tucker Kraft straight up for Kittle, just based on people being scared of the age for Kittle. So I think that's super exploitable right now. You mentioned TJ Hockenson.
You bite your tongue, D-Walk.
Hey, I was
a big Noah Fant guy.
I was the biggest Noah Fant guy too. Yeah,
Jacoby, we get along so well.
Jacoby Myers and Noah Fant. Well, it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to acknowledge his little comment. Go ahead.
No. That's pretty much it. But yeah, like I agree, and I think, look, Porta, I think, is just like egregiously mispriced. I mean, obviously it's a good offense, but like, what are we doing here? Like, he's still. It's crazy because I feel like during the season, his value tanked. Like, he was maybe equivalent to like a 6 or 7 round startup pick. Like, people were kind of down on him until the end of the season when he bounced back and kind of scored near the end. Yeah. But now he's back in startups. I was doing some early this offseason. He's like a 3rd or 4th round startup pick still. And I'm like, I just cannot get there. So thanks for diving deep into the tight end landscape. That's
listen, you asked me an open-ended question. Just you ever heard the line, be careful what you wish for? I'll give it to you. You know, you just might get it.
It was so funny. I was in a job interview today, and both of us were kind of yappers, and he was just like, he had a hard out, and he was like, ended up being like, it was already 5 minutes past. And he's like, yeah, we didn't get to all our questions because we both like to talk a lot. I was like, yes, that is very true.
And yeah, someone just put Ben Sinnott. Haven't seen from him, but yeah, that was a bet, by the way. But he was different cost. Here's the thing, right? Yeah. You talked about Tucker Kraft. I think it's kind of baked into his price now. He's at tight end 10, so maybe it is getting a little richer at the point of betting on Tucker Kraft. Again, when I talk about, if I was betting on tight end 1, I'm not even taking the crazy high odds of Tucker Kraft, understanding that, right? But if I'm taking Tucker Kraft in round 10, round 11, I'm hoping to hold serve with you and basically bet that the WORP difference between these two is negligible, right?
Sure.
Like, I would love to see Tucker Kraft outscore yours, sure. But I know inherently his upside's probably not in the same range where Kittle has been. every year. Like Kittle's top 3, and people still like to hate him. TJ Hawkinson, he's been tight end 1. So like those two relative to the ones that you can get kind of in the middle ground, right? You're still using some premium capital. Like you're drafting Hawkinson ahead of an RJ Harvey, ahead of a DK Metcalf, ahead of Tyreek Hill, right? Ahead of starters for you. But you might have the opportunity to thread the needle where you have the tight end 1 for the season. Or would you rather just say, hey, I'm probably looking to hope that Tucker Kraft is a top 6 tight end. He's better than the replaceable level tight ends that I could just pick up. And I'm using a round 10, 11 startup pick where I'm not really drafting a starter in that range. Because here's the other scary part about it. A WORP tight end life basically says, even if you have the right tight ends on a weekly basis, like Brock Bowers still, believe it or not, as great as he was, had some duds, right?
Sure.
You could end up basically streaming and coming a lot closer than you think at the tight end protection last year. Last year in best ball, now this is a little bit different, but in best ball, Noah Fant and Juwan Johnson were better in WARP than was Dalton Kincaid.
That's wild.
And Noah Fant was terrible. They drafted another tight end. Like, it's again, the point is there's plenty of duds to be had even for these elite tight ends. Even the ones that are great, sometimes they're going to have a 3 for 40 week, a 3 for 30 week. Like that's what we're betting on, right? You know what the WARP is on that and a half-point tight end premium? Those guys are giving you 6 points, dude.
That's nothing, yeah.
Anyway, I'm very, if you can't tell, I'm very biased and I have very strong on this take.
No, that's I like to hear because like I said, my lineage of Dynasty advice has been very, very tight end focused in terms of you want to be betting on these guys. So I like to hear the other side.
I've made the wrong bets I've made those bets before. I've got the Pitts jersey. I've had, man, I traded for Pitts once. So it's one thing to draft a first round startup pick. I traded for Pitts when he was at that point, like 2 future firsts, one of which turned into 104, right? Like that's basically where you took Kyle Pitts, for God's sakes. And I traded 4 assets for him. Like the Kyle Pitts had to be the unicorn that I used to deem him as. I used to have on my wall here a little Kyle Pitts unicorn sticker that had to be removed. He has to be that to pay off with the cost, the opportunity cost there. So I've been unfortunately burned by the tight end chasing game. Yeah,
well, I'll definitely have to think about that more and try to integrate it into my process. So really, really appreciate you diving deep into all of this. I have one more question. For you before we head out of here. I have a hard out at 5.
So do I. Well, here I was going to say, just like my daughter, they're very repetitive at 3. She's last time, Daddy, last question.
Probably, yeah. I'll probably ask you 4 more questions after this. So let's be honest. But
that's all good.
So yeah, like it's peak rookie hype season right now. So do you think we've reached the point where kind of the value is already baked in a lot of times with rookies, and are you trying to pivot off of that, or how are you approaching rookies
I'm gonna right now? I'm going to answer the question because 1, you asked it to me. 2, I'm a gentleman, a scholar. Okay. But more so it's hilarious. I literally got a video dropped within the hour on BDGE. It's let me give you the title. It's called 7 rookies whose dynasty value has skyrocketed after the NFL draft. And I basically went through like the situation that we have, where they're at, what the trade cost is, what the startup cost is, and it's like, is there any meat left on the bone here, or can we?
Yeah,
I actually believe right now for some of these guys, the answer still is yes, but we're definitely there's definitely still some ascension that could happen with production, but we're getting close. And again, not to belabor the point, but I made a trade where I moved off of Mahomes, which not very long ago was the 101 in dynasty startups, right?
Yeah.
For JJ McCarthy, who's wildly unproven and unknown. Like I'm not saying he won't develop well and that I didn't make the bet on him. Okay,
but it's still projection, yeah.
Yeah, projection. And the assets I got back were, again, 111, 112, 203. We're talking about day 2 running backs. We're talking about RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson, round 3, Bashal Tutin, round 4.
Yeah.
do y'all know what the hit rate is? Like, I absolutely could be looking at having JJ McCarthy and a bunch of cans for Patrick Mahomes. And right now it's causing someone was upset about this trade from my side. So to speak to the rookie fever part, okay, like just contextually, think about that. Contextually, guys, I'm getting told that I fleece somebody on rookie fever. That's the point that I think at the moment right now. I really wanted to get RJ Harvey because he fell to the 204, but the person that was trading the 204 is no longer asking the 204 prices, and he's trying to compete me 1-for-1 with the other person that ended up getting RJ Harvey because I bowed out. And it was, okay, I need your future first in 26. I need a little more on top of that. It's like, all right, you know what? I'm good.
I'm definitely good.
Where there's that push and pull all the time in Dynasty where, dude, the draft just happened. RJ Harvey could be Sean Payton's next chosen one, right? Like, it's very easy to go down and see yourself make that bet, get him on your team. Speaking of dopamine hit. All right, let's go. I got RJ Harvey. He's going to be sweet. But what's the cost here, man? Like, what's the cost versus what the bet is? I would say most of these players at the moment are getting close to the point of big first round picks. They probably still have more to lose actually than they have to gain. But it really depends on how much you believe in them. Like Genty right now, what I can tell you is, given the track record for top 10 running backs in the last 10 years, even if he fails, it's a running back one season. So, okay, cool. Like,
pretty locked in, yeah.
Yeah. But listen, RJ Harvey, as much as I like him, that he could end up being here today, gone tomorrow. Caleb Johnson, same thing. Like, so when you're talking about investing future first, like first plus in these type of players, now we have to start baking in a lot more of the downside. And at the moment, nobody wants to talk about that because it's rookie fever. It's not cool.
Yeah, everyone's in I'm in 25 rookie drafts right now. Of course, I don't want to talk about the downside of these guys. That's just
you know what's not
intuitive.
You know what's not fun? I had the 310 and the 410, and I didn't even get who I wanted there. I got DJ Giddens, and I didn't even get Jordan James in the 410. I don't remember who I took there. Like, that's not fun. But I'm also, is it worth investing my future picks into this? Like, that's where I think a lot of times it can be, we can get a little bit foolish as far as making a trade there. Now, listen, RJ Harvey could go to the moon. What if he's the next Alvin Kamara light, so to speak? Sure. But the range of outcomes exists for any player. So I think right now, I will say this, though. The one thing about this year, I personally, and maybe this is just me because people are leery of trading with me, I have typically in the past been able to really, really leverage draft picks right around this time, maybe a week or two prior.
Okay.
I haven't been able to actually move off of the picks for either future pick values or vets as easily as I have in the past. So I think it's a little bit less as far as, because people devalue the class in general this year.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say that. That's
a little
exactly
bit.
what I was going to say.
It's not quite as horrible as it's been in the past as far as like rookie fever and paying up that premium tax.
No, you're right. I don't think it's like the number of blue chippers isn't the same where it's like just third, fourth round startup picks, right? Like even like the Loveland, Warren, Igbuka, like that, it's more like 5-6 round startup picks. So it's not as crazy, but
right.
I still think, you have to. Is the juice worth the squeeze? I think it's still to be seen. So
well said.
Well, Adam, thanks so much for hopping on, brother. It's great to finally virtually meet you.
Yeah, man. I feel like I was out. I feel like with the background and your setup, I feel like I've been like outside. And believe me, I don't actually want to be outside. Know how it always looks sunny there during the day. It's because of the reflection. It is actually gray and ugly and rainy here.
It's pretty gray right now, but it's getting better. Honestly, it's been a terrible spring. It's been really cold, but I'm like, okay, it's 60 degrees. I'll take it. Like I can go outside. It's not raining. That's all I can ask for. But so why don't you let us know what's going on with you over at South Harmon and BDGE, and anything else you wanna cover off on.
No, you're too kind. I've been yapping away for 2 hours, and like, make sure you tell us what's been going on. I appreciate the opportunity, man. Appreciate chopping it up with you. South Harmon FF. You can check our stuff out. WORP.life or southharmonff.com. Our website has a bunch of free and paid tools that I promise you, if you try to use them, will be far worth. Speaking of the juice is worth a squeeze, I know it is. We have the South Harmon YouTube channel. YouTube, it's at South Harmon FF. I'm doing work with BDGE again. I shamelessly plug everything over here. I got a video that just dropped right now if you want to go check that out, if you'd like any of the garbage I've been yapping at you lately. And BDGE, South Harmon. We have a ton of great creators on South Harmon right now doing a bunch of dope work. Getting the opportunity to work with Nick is one of the things where it's like, hey, way before I even literally no idea of making content at all, just watching him and being like, now I got a chance to work with him. Sometimes it's pretty cool, man. So just being able to have the experience of that is pretty awesome. But he does unbelievable work. BDG, the whole team there. So that's where you can find me. South Harmon, BDG. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, all you guys, both places, really smart individuals, really good content creators, and just friendly, good people. So always we'll hype you guys up. All the links are down below for all that. Someone said the Discord link might have been old, so I'll try to comment all the new ones down there. For me, I'm going to be hopping on with Emo Cowboy and Best Ball Guy over on the Fantasy Sanctuary right after this. So be sure to check that out. Go join the Discord. It's free for me. I think we got 65 people in there right now. So a lot of ball knowers in there, like Best Ball, Dynasty, just very, very smart people in there. So if you guys have any Dynasty questions, want to post your Best Ball teams, I'm sure you will get some good feedback from me and others. We have more streams coming up. We have Ron Stewart will be hopping on with me and my co-host Ferris next week.
Cool. I got the pleasure to meet Ron when I was in New York a couple weeks ago.
You guys were doing your trivia, right?
He was there for the trivia tournament. I'll be honest, I would have loved to have talked with him more. It was a bunch of stuff going on, but it was pretty cool. It's funny how the shit works just in general. Like, he comes in, he doesn't know who I am. He's introduced himself. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm hip to the basement, I've been watched it before. So yeah, Ron's a great guy, man. It's cool.
Yeah, he's one of the good ones for sure. He's a great guy. I'll have him on. And then I might be doing a stream with Emo Cowboy and Mathology, who finished first place in the regular season for BBM last year. We call ourselves the Fish. We said the Fish bonk back. So we're gonna try to push back against the Best Ball Cabal and their group think on Friday as well. So
I like that. A little contrarian in you. Yeah, we're the Fish. Yeah, that's us. I love that.
All right, everyone. Yeah, make sure to like and sub. Go check out all of Adam's stuff at South Harmon and BDGE, and we will see you guys on the other side.
Smoochies.
Adios.